Trump in 2024, maybe they've bought in to the media lies about him. Think for yourself, look at what he actually said. And I think you'll find that he's, one, a very engaging guy, but two, was a very good president.
There aren't media lies. We play him and we let him speak for himself. And so people are getting exactly.
I'm not accusing you of lying,
no,
Dana. You know I like you, but
no,
the media lies
not.
from time to time.
I know you're not, but people.
She just said the media doesn't lie. Are you kidding me? Hi, everyone. I called this video Unabashed because I wanted to say something else, but I thought that that might sound violent, just make a play off of Dana Bash's name. But Unabashed, I mean, that clip that you just saw is from CNN's own channel. So Dana Bash did this interview with vice presidential candidate, Republican candidate under Donald Trump, JD Vance. And this was a fascinating interview. The bias is just absolutely seething. And I'm somebody, I just give you who I am. I worked for Canadian Network News. I worked for Global News for many, many years. I see how the news business is run. I've been in that business for a really long time. And I can tell you, I saw nothing but lies. So when she says that the media doesn't lie, I don't know what she's talking about, to be honest. Now, we're going to get into a little bit of this video because I found this fascinating. I am a Canadian watching what's happening in the US with a lot of interest. It is very interesting because that has knock-on effects for what happens here in Canada. But before we get into the video, if I could ask if you please likey, that would be so great. If you just tickle that little algorithm for me, that would totally help a lot. And if you could subscribe to the channel, that would be amazing. Thank you so much. Now, Dana Bash has been a longtime anchor, a longtime employee of CNN. She started there right after college. She's about the same age as I am, so she's worked there for a really long time. She's the host of Inside Politics right now and the co-anchor of State of the Union. Now, from 1998 to 2007, she was married to a guy called Jeremy Bash. Let me tell you a little bit about Jeremy Bash. Jeremy Bash would become the CIA chief of staff, and then he became the DOD, Department of Defense, chief of staff under the Obama administration. These people are very connected. The DOD and the CIA, and Dana Bash is not about to defy them. And she knows that, no matter what she thinks. Now, there are some people that are just Democrat to the core because they don't know what else to be. You know, they've locked into this idea. They've always been Democrat and they don't know what else to do. I have relatives like that in the state. They can see what's going on, but they're Democrat to the core and they can't see another way. And the thing I found about this interview is just when you're a journalist, no matter who you interview, you are supposed to be engaging, but at the very basic, it's like journalism 101. You are supposed to be unbiased. And all she did in this interview was just seethe with bias. If you read the comments, this is posted on CNN's own YouTube channel. And all the comments are saying you're biased, you're biased, you're biased. We can tell you're biased. This isn't neutral journalism going on anymore. And that's what bothers me so much as someone who worked in the business for a long time. I really hate seeing stuff like this. And I see it constantly to the point where I think there's a whole group of people in the media that at this point now have a mental illness. But, you know, I'm not sitting here supporting anybody, but what I see so far of JD Vance, I like. So let's watch a little bit more together where Dana Bash here of CNN is accusing JD Vance of calling the Democratic Party anti-family. And what else I like about this video, about this part of what JD Vance says, is that he goes on to say, you have me for a limited time. Are we going to talk about policies? And by the way, where is Kamala? Why is she not giving interviews?
Kamala Harris.
I criticize Kamala Harris for being part of a set of ideas that exists in American leadership that is anti-family. I never, Dana, criticize people for not having kids. I criticize people for being anti-child. And I do think that Kamala Harris has made some bizarre statements. She has said things like, it's reasonable not to have children over climate change. I think it's the exact opposite message we should be sending to our young families. I want to expand the child tax credit. I want to stop those surprise medical bills. I want to make housing more affordable so that if you have a young family, you can actually afford to put them in a home. And I think that it is unfortunate that so much of our public leadership has become anti-family. One final point on this, Dana, if you go back to the COVID era, one thing that really frustrated me and motivated some of these comments is we were at a point where we were kicking kids out of school. We were masking 3-year-olds and putting the masks back on them, even as they were trying to rip them off at school. I think that if we had more people who took the right perspective and had a little bit more understanding of how little kids actually operate, we would not have made so many of those mistakes during COVID.
That's a whole nother conversation because
No,
people
it's
didn't know.
related to
No,
this.
because
That's a whole other conversation she doesn't want to talk about. Why don't you want to talk about that? Why don't you want to deconstruct that? You are pre-taping this interview. You do not have limited time. You are not under the gun. You do not have a commercial break that you have to roll. This is not live television. This is a pre-tape. So she's just shutting down this conversation about that topic he brought up.
people didn't know as much because it
Oh,
was
please.
literally a novel
Sure,
virus.
but Dana, you asked me about you.
The DOD knew. Go ask your ex-husband.
Okay, you've now asked me 3 questions about comments that I made 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
I wonder what Kamala Harris thinks about the fact that she supported policies that opened the American southern border. I wonder what Kamala Harris thinks about the fact that she lied to the American people about Joe Biden's middle
And that's another thing a lot of interviewers do. They get on their high horse. I'm interviewing you. Hang on, I'm asking the questions. No, he's not your slave and you are not his master. I think a lot of journalists get that wrong these days.
facility for the office. You are interviewing me, Dana, because I respect the American people enough to sit down for an interview.
I appreciate that.
Kamala Harris has been the nominee for 3 weeks. She hasn't sat down for a real
Believe
interview.
me, we are asking. You're not going to get a
but,
disagreement there.
But the point is, Dana, you've got me for 15 minutes or however long you have me. We should be talking about public policies that matter. How are we going to lower inflation? How are we going to reduce the cost of food and housing? How are we going to close down that southern border? We've talked so little about that. We've talked a lot more about a sarcastic remark I made 3 years ago. I think we should talk about the issues that most Americans care about.
I only asked you one question about that. I asked you about policies, and I was asking about the military record that you brought up. Nobody else did of Tim Walz. One last question. This is on policy.
Please.
The Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Donald Trump said this week that he feels strongly that the president should have at least a say when it comes to the Federal Reserve and how to handle interest rates.
A couple of things. He does kind of smile like a little bit of like a Cheshire cat. But he's still very diplomatic and very, refined and very polite. And he's like, please go ahead. And he just basically dismantled her in this interview. It was embarrassing, I thought, for CNN. And this is on their own channel. I'll leave you with that little cliffhanger part. I encourage you to watch that video for yourself where she talks about the Federal Reserve, who most people by now know the Federal Reserve has nothing to do with being federal. It is not a government body or a government agency if you go back and look at the history of the Federal Reserve and how that was created. So that's all very interesting. Now, tell me in the comments, tell me what you think. Do you think that she was biased, or do you think she was neutral? What people have to understand is that the job of a journalist is just to get the story. You interview whoever your subject is. You should be entertaining, engaging. You don't make an enemy of someone, whether you like them or don't like them, because you won't get a good interview and you won't get good answers. I've interviewed a lot of people. I don't come attacking anybody, even if I disagree with them. The whole point is understanding. And she is so fixated on Democrat that she cannot see the forest for the trees. She's so sitting there in defense of Kamala Harris. Where is Kamala Harris? She didn't show up at for the Association of Black Journalists. Donald Trump showed up there and Kamala couldn't show up. It's like Kamala Harris cannot talk off the top of her head, which is very disconcerting. You should just know things off the top of your head. You don't need a teleprompter in front of you. So let me know in the comments what you thought about this interview. It's a fascinating interview to watch. JD Vance comes off as very likable, very knowledgeable. I would love to see a debate with him and Tim Walz. Like I said, I will be covering some stories in Canadian politics because that's ever more interesting. I just thought I would share this video with you because it was just so blatantly biased. Dana Bash, leave me a comment. Please like this video, subscribe, and share. Watch out for more from me. AnitaKrishna.com for more. And I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.